Learn the pivot compression golf swing. Join WDGLC.com today.
Hey there everybody, it's Wayne D and it's Masters Week. First round's over and we got two of the leaders. Thought I'd do a little swing look-see at the guys that are playing good. So we got Lee Westwood on one side and we got Louis Oosthuizen on the other side. Now this Oosthuizen swings from last week. Here we got Westwood from today actually. So nice, we got a still camera behind the tee box on 15 here, I think. Yep. So camera's kind of in the right spot, so we can give it a shot with some lines here. See what Lee is doing. One thing for sure, he's a strong-looking guy. So is Oosthuizen. I mean, you don't see the lumpy guys much anymore. Let's see what Mr. Westwood likes to do. So let's take a look. His hands and club are above the shaft plane. Now, camera angles are so funny that it's hard to say. I would trust this. I would say he's above and slightly away from himself here. You can see the head start to go down and forward a bit. So with that sort of up and out takeaway, but the right arm is flaring, and you can see the shaft just barely vertical of plane. You see the knees and legs not moving too much here. So, a super strong guy. This is a very much of an upper body oriented takeaway here. Limited leg movement. Look where the right arm is, right out beside his, out to the side of his back there. So definitely, if you're looking at right arm positioning, the arm is bent and the elbow is deep. Let's watch Oosthuizen swing here. So we can see the same thing. Now this is something that I usually prefer. Now this angle is not very good here. You can see the toe line out to the right, so can't really get the plane lines on this one, but we can just observe. Here we see Oosthuizen's elbow from this angle outside of his back a little bit. So think about how that right arm is working. It's bending quite a bit, and the club is coming up the shaft plane, so the wrists are helping the club elevate while the right arm bends, and the right arm is not stuck to the body, it's away from it. You would see that more clearly from the front view, but there is definite carry, what I would call carry or width, in the takeaway. The interesting thing about Westwood, his hands really don't elevate very much, so the swing takes a horizontal track in the second part of the swing, but he really manages not to cross the line with the shaft nicely.
Looking to maximize your golfing potential? Learn how from one of the world's best golf instructors. Join today at WDGLC.com.
Very deep right arm there with Westwood. So we start down. Now, the more I see this, the more I think this is like one of the magic moves. I've been focusing on this in my instruction. Watch the shaft and the club head in the start down. Where does the grip handle go? Grip handle is going at the ball. The shaft is shallowing, and it's not just tipping back a hair. I mean, that thing is really kicking. You can see where the club head is here. Look where it goes. It goes sideways. So it's almost like a helicopter. I mean, the club head is literally going horizontal to the ground for a moment there. Now with Westwood's elbow that deep, when he comes down, he really doesn't drive the upper part of his arm inward. He's so strong that he keeps his hips back. You can see how he's still in the box here. And his arm just kind of makes it out in front of him. Definitely not Hogan-esque in the way he's using that upper right arm. Comes in a bit above the shaft plane, but with perfect shaft control. And by that I mean, if you look at where the shaft is here, no evidence of getting stuck. So he's going to arc that thing through, keep his hips deep. And now let's take a look at his head movement, if you haven't already noticed. Down and forward there, and then down again. So here's another guy. Tremendous amount of lowering during the swing. Now when we look at Oosthuizen's swing a little more carefully, we're not going to see that. You can see something a little different, but look at that. So here's another. How come they never talk about how far down Westwood goes? I think that, you know, they just pick certain guys whose lowering is more obvious, and every time they hit a bad shot, they'll mention it. But take a look at it at full speed here. Tremendous acceleration. I mean, all these guys rip the thing. So you know, when you watch, one of the things to notice and to emulate is just how hard they're going at it through the ball. Let's flip over to Louis here. And here's another guy. He's not that big, but tremendous. He reminds me of Jeff Sluman when it comes to firing through the ball. Sluman weighs about 140 pounds and was like 5'6", and could hit the ball like 290. And you know, that was before the clubs and the balls got ridiculous. And Oosthuizen's the same way, much thicker and bigger than, not a big guy, certainly, but much thicker than Jeff, but just perfect coordination through the ball. And another example here, watch been talking about a pivot-oriented takeaway, or a takeaway that comes from the ground and not from the upper body. So just if I start to move this back and forth, you can see the movement in the hip joints in the midsection, and the movement is obviously into the ground or lower, putting pressure toward the right heel, and that's happening before the club moves. So there's a so Oosthuizen is one of these guys that does all of his lowering initially and to load the backswing, and then he just pretty much stays there. And I've said that before, you've got all sorts of different combinations of movement as far as lowering goes. You can lower going back and not forward. You can lower not going back and lower forward. You can do both. What you don't see very often is lifting. Except when you get into the impact area, a lot of guys, when they get down in this area, will come up. And then some other guys come down. Extra. Oosthuizen, his head stays nice and steady in there. That position at the top, very interesting. Slightly cupped wrist fairly open club face. So you've got a neutral grip, cupped wrist, very open. And then again, if you watch the move coming forward, you know, when I look at this, I see the hands moving out and the shaft moving more sideways. Not as much as Westwood here, but still same thing. And again, Oosthuizen does not drive his upper right arm into him. And thus when his right arm straightens, it straightens more so down the line or to the right, so the club face will have more rotation in it than somebody that would put the arm in front of him more. But one of the cool things about Oosthuizen's swing is the tempo and rhythm. Full set and then poof, really gets through it. Beautiful. Alright, so there are your two leaders. Westwood 67, Oosthuizen 68, a couple more 68s, but I thought I'd just focus on these two guys because I really love the action, and we'll do some more.